The coat had hung there for years, light blue, a gift for their 40th, but today the pocket bulged in a way he didn't recognize. He reached in casually, a husband tidying up. His fingers touched stiff paper. He pulled it out. One way, the letters blood red, then the date, their 45th anniversary tomorrow.
His chest seized. She bought a ticket for the morning of their anniversary, without a single word.
The house pressed in around him, silent as a held breath. He stood frozen, air thinning. He couldn't look at the coat now. Every fold seemed shaped by a secret he'd missed. Flight 784. Departure 7:15 a.m. She would be gone before he even woke.
45 years of mornings, and she intended to vanish like a thief in the dawn.
He folded the ticket and slid it back. Her plan was safe. His silence was the only answer he had. Night fell over the house. Inside, the man who had built a life for two now stood utterly alone. Sleep never came. He sat in the study, the desk lamp a small island in the dark, the dog breathing slow at his feet.
The ticket played behind his eyelids. Every time he closed them, those red letters burned brighter.
By 2 in the morning, he rose. His bare feet carried him back to the foyer. He pulled the ticket out again and angled it under the hall light. Under the hard bulb, the passenger name glared. Not Patricia Warren, Patricia Caldwell, her maiden name.
She'd shed his name like an old coat. The woman he'd married for 45 years had already buried Patricia Warren.
The ticket wasn't just a purchase. It was a statement. Her passport would match this new old name. She'd erased him from her paperwork, her future.
This wasn't a frightened impulse. She'd planned it for weeks, maybe months, and she'd hidden it so well, I never flinched.
He slid the ticket back into the coat and stood in the hallway, the house a hollow shell. Then his eyes moved to the door of her study.
Enough standing in the dark. If she could lock away this much of her life, there would be more. He had to see the rest.
He pushed the study door open. The room smelled like her perfume, but tonight it felt like a stranger's. Somewhere in those drawers, answers waited. The study held its breath. He ran his fingers along the spines of her journals, pulled open the desk drawers one by one, but found only stationery and old receipts.
She was always the neat one. Every surface polished, every paper filed. But this neatness only hid the mess underneath.
He remembered the small wooden box where she kept her few pieces of jewelry. Inside, beneath the velvet insert, his fingers brushed metal, a key.
The key was small, brass, and it fit no ordinary lock. Then he saw the bottom drawer, slightly recessed, with a tiny keyhole he'd never noticed.
The drawer slid open on oiled tracks. Inside, a thick manila folder, unmarked, rested. He lifted it onto the desk and opened the cover. The pages were bank statements, dated over the past 6 months, stamped with the name of a joint account. Across each, numbers had been circled in red ink. The transfers were large, 8,000, 12,000, sometimes 18, and each one fed into a routing number he didn't recognize. The destination account was overseas.
This wasn't a few dollars saved for a splurge. She'd been moving their shared money in secret, month after month, building a new life fund.
He spread the statements across the desk like a puzzle. $63,000, all moved out since February. The last transfer was 3 days ago. William looked at the empty room. She hadn't just planned an exit. She'd hollowed out their financial safety. All that was left was a house and a dog and the ghost of a marriage. He lifted the bank statements aside. Beneath them, a navy blue passport lay waiting, its cover unmarked. He opened it. Patricia Caldwell. The photograph was new, her silver hair crisp, the smile familiar but cold.
The issue date was less than a month ago. She'd renewed her identity as if she were a woman without a husband.
The weight of it drove him into the chair. $63,000 and a fresh passport. She needed nothing from him. The dog padded over from the corner, sensing the stillness, and rested a heavy head on William's knee.
Tomorrow morning, she'd walk out that door and never look back. He knew that now.
But he also knew something else. He wouldn't beg. He wouldn't call her name or plead for an explanation.
If she could plan a secret departure, he could plan a secret response.
He closed the passport and set it on top of the bank statements, then shut the drawer and pocketed the brass key. The house was quiet again. In the morning, he would act like nothing had changed. He needed time to decide his next move. Morning. Sunlight filled the kitchen. Patricia stood at the stove, whisking eggs, a smile on her face that William had trusted for 45 years.
Happy anniversary, William. Coffee's fresh. I made that dark roast you pretend to hate.
I'll drink it anyway. Smells good, Patty. You sleep well last night? She looked so at ease, not a single nervous glance at the clock. How many mornings had he misread her?
He sat and watched her plate the omelet. The ring glinted, but every gesture now seemed rehearsed.
I thought we'd have a nice dinner tonight. Just the two of us.
Sounds good. I have a few errands to run this morning, but I'll be back to help cook. She didn't flinch, not an eyebrow raised. Errand was the magic word, and she let him go without a single question.
He set his fork down, pushed back from the table, and brushed her shoulder as he passed. The contact felt hollow. She called after him. The door shut. In the car, William let the mask slip. He drove toward the lawyer's office. The law office was a glass and bronze building that felt like a different planet from the quiet house he'd left. William stepped inside, rehearsing the words. The receptionist led him straight through. Thomas Warren stood, hand extended, his face already reading trouble.
William, this is unexpected. Have a seat. You look like a man carrying something heavy.
I am, Thomas. I need you to look at some things and tell me what my options are.
He placed the photocopied ticket, the bank statements, and the passport image on the desk in a neat row. The evidence made a small, damning landscape. Thomas leaned forward, the easy expression draining from his face. He turned each page, his jaw tightening.
This is more than a marital spat. She's moved funds overseas. Under the law, that's marital property. You can petition to recover it.
Recover it? The word felt odd. He'd never imagined taking something back from Patricia.
If you file for divorce, we can freeze what's left and attach the transfers. But the clock is ticking. She's leaving tomorrow.
Draw up the papers. I won't sign them yet, but have them ready.
William walked into the house carrying a bag of groceries he'd bought on the way. Patricia was already in the living room, adjusting a vase of roses she must have picked up.
There you are. I was about to start without you. The flowers for the centerpiece, do they look all right?
She's arranging roses for the dinner she plans to skip. 24 hours ago. That would have cut him in half. Now, it just sharpened his focus.
Oh, I almost forgot. My friend from book club, Sandra, asked if I could stop by after dessert tonight. I won't be long, I promise.
William didn't pause. He pulled the banner from the bag and unrolled it. "Sandra's lucky to have you," he said, voice steady. Inside, the clock started ticking louder.
Sandra. There was no Sandra. The name was a placeholder for a departure gate.
He spread the cloth over the table, placed the candlesticks. The dog patted in, tail wagging, and William gave it a brief scratch.
By midnight, she'd be gone. But before that, she'd have to sit across from him and pretend he could do the same.
I'll set the plates. You always forget the salad forks.
He stepped back. The room glowed with candlelight and fresh flowers. She smiled, and he smiled back. Both faces were masks, but only one of them knew it. Patricia scooped up her purse and gave him a quick peck on the cheek. "I need a few last things for the cake," she said, already reaching for her coat. He stood at the front window and watched her car pull out of the driveway. The engine faded, leaving only the hum of the refrigerator. He clipped the leash onto Buddy and stepped outside. The dog pulled toward the park path, and William followed, the late sun warming his shoulders.
63,000, a passport under a dead name, a one-way ticket. She'd built a second life while he sat across the breakfast table.
He stopped at a bench near the duck pond. let the leash go slack, and pulled out his phone. Buddy dropped onto the grass with a huff.
Thomas, the papers. I need them finalized by 4:30. I'll pick them up on my way back.
The call lasted 30 seconds. He ended it and stared at the dark screen, the weight of the next few hours pressing inward.
No more waiting. By tonight, she'd understand what it felt like to have a door close without warning.
He stood and walked back the way they came, the dog trotting obediently. When he pushed open the front door, the house was still empty. In the study, he closed the door. The wall clock read 3:05. He had 2 hours. He sat in the leather chair and waited. After 10 minutes of silence, he rose from the leather chair and walked to the desk. The waiting was worse than the doing. He pulled out the brass key again and slid it into the hidden drawer's lock. The click was soft but final. From the drawer, he took the bank statements, the passport, and a photocopy of the boarding pass. He laid them on the desk. A manila envelope sat untouched in the stationery tray. He took it, then uncapped a pen. In neat, unhurried script, he wrote Patricia across the front. No Warren, just the name she'd chosen to reclaim. He slid the passport copy, the statements, and the ticket photocopy into the envelope. The paper rustled like dead leaves. Buddy lifted his head from the corner, watching with brown, knowing eyes. William didn't look back.
This envelope held the end of a marriage, heavier than the $63,000 she'd taken.
He placed the envelope back into the hidden drawer, locked it, and pocketed the key. It would stay there until dinner. He returned to the leather chair. The clock ticked toward 4. Outside, the sun angled low. The house waited. He grabbed his keys and told Buddy to guard the house. The dog whined once, then settled. The drive to Thomas's office cut through quiet suburban streets. The sun hung low, turning the windshield amber. The glass and bronze building reflected the late light. Thomas's office door was ajar, as if expecting him.
Everything's signed and notarized. The petition, the property schedule. Serve her when you are ready.
He took the folder. It was heavier than the $63,000. This was the weight of finality.
The drive back took 9 minutes. He parked, walked inside, and went straight to the study without a glance at the dining room. The hidden drawer opened for the 3rd time that day. He lifted the evidence envelope and carried it to the desk. He slid the divorce papers inside, the stark black lettering against the circled bank figures. Then he resealed the clasp. He walked to the dining room, opened a sideboard, and placed the envelope beneath a stack of cloth napkins. It vanished from sight. The table was set for 2, candles unlit. Patricia's car still wasn't in the driveway. William sat down and faced the empty chair. Patricia's sedan pulled into the driveway just after 5. The front door opened, and she stepped in humming a tune he didn't recognize. William met her in the hall, took the paper bag, and guided her toward the living room where 2 champagne flutes stood waiting.
I thought we deserved a real toast before dinner. Sit down, Patty.
You are unusually cheerful tonight. Should I be suspicious?
She was still performing. After everything he'd found, he almost admired the polish.
He filled the flutes, the bubbles rising in the warm light that spilled through the window.
To 45 years, Patty. All of them.
To 45 years.
As she moved, he saw the suitcase behind the sofa. Packed, ready. She'd planned to be gone before the bubbles settled.
He offered his hand, and she took it. They moved into the candlelit dining room, the first course waiting beside the hidden envelope. They sat across from each other, the candle flames softening the edges of the room. The first course was a delicate soup neither of them tasted.
The soup is perfect. I can't believe you made it from scratch. You've been hiding culinary talents.
Her gaze drifted to the grandfather clock, then snapped back. The second hand seemed louder than her voice.
She's counting the minutes. Not to our 46th year, but to her escape.
I am glad you are not disappointed. I'll slip out for a bit later. Sandra's been so lonely. A good friend is a rare thing.
No disappointment at all. In fact, I noticed you've got a little suitcase by the sofa. Planning a long visit?
Oh, that. Just a few things I promised Sandra. Old clothes for donation. You know I am always clearing out.
Lies lie on top of lies. The weight of them pressed the tablecloth flat.
They ate in silence for a moment. The clink of silverware sounded like distant hammer blows. The second course waited, and so did the envelope. Patricia's phone, resting on the white tablecloth, vibrated once. The screen flickered, casting a small blue rectangle. The notification read, "Check-in now open for flight 784. Departure 7:15 a.m. Gate A12. Patricia turned the phone over with a swift, practiced motion. Her smile didn't slip, but the corners tightened.
He saw the screen reflected in her water glass before she moved. Flight 784. The flight he'd memorized. The cold rush of confirmation hit his chest. She was leaving in 8 hours. Her lies were now measured in minutes. More wine, Patty? The Bordeaux is breathing nicely.
A little more, yes. It's a good year.
The year we took that trip to France. The year before the first transfer. He could mark the betrayal on a calendar.
He poured the wine with a steady hand. The candle flames never wavered. She checked the clock again, unaware he was counting along with her. The evening pressed in. The dessert plates sat empty. On Patricia's plate, a smear of chocolate caught the candle's gleam. She scooted her chair back.
Wait, Patty. I have something for you.
A gift? William, you didn't have to.
Her eyes shifted from the clock to his face, searching for the catch. He stood, and the chair scraped the floor. In the corner, Buddy lifted his head, sensing the shift. He crossed to the sideboard, his footsteps even on the hardwood. He opened the drawer. Beneath the napkins, the manila envelope waited, its handwritten name facing up. He lifted it, felt its weight, then closed the drawer without a sound.
45 years of folding napkins together, and he was about to unfold everything.
He walked back, the envelope held gently across his palm. The last gift of their marriage. William settled into his chair, the envelope resting flat on the tablecloth. Patricia's smile had faded, replaced by a cautious stillness.
Patricia, for 45 years, I have loved you. Through every morning, every meal, every silence.
He slid the envelope across the table with one finger. The paper whispered against the linen, stopping beside her plate.
Tonight, I give you this.
A gift for their anniversary. But why did his eyes look like he was already saying goodbye?
She touched the envelope, feeling the thickness beneath her fingertips. Not a card, not a single piece of paper.
What is it, William? You are making me nervous.
Open it, Patty.
Her hand hesitated on the seal. From the corner of the room, the grandfather clock struck the half-hour, 9 chimes. The envelope lay between them, unopened. The dinner was over. The night was just beginning. Patricia broke the seal with her thumbnail. The envelope opened like a wound. The first page slid out. Bold black letters. Petition for dissolution of marriage.
The words blurred, then snapped into terrible focus. Divorce. William. She felt the floor drop.
She fumbled deeper and pulled out the bank statements. Red circles marked her hidden transfers.
Every withdrawal, every hidden account, printed for her to see. He had uncovered everything.
The divorce papers trembled in her grip. The candle flames leaned, as if the room itself tilted. She looked up at William. His face was carved from the same stillness that had held the room all evening.
How long have you known?
Long enough.
She lowered the papers. The passport copy slipped to the floor, Patricia Caldwell staring up from the hardwood. Silence pressed into the dining room, heavier than any words either of them had ever spoken. The silence broke as William leaned forward. His voice was low, the way it always was when he'd already won.
The money you transferred isn't yours, Patricia. It's marital property. My lawyer will freeze it before your flight leaves.
You can't. I needed that money to start over.
Start over with what was ours. The court sees it differently, and so do I.
She'd spent months hiding, and he'd dismantled it all in a single dinner. She'd never known him to be so calculating.
Her knuckles whitened on the table edge. The candle flames shivered, as if flinching for her.
I just needed to go. I didn't think you'd.
Number. You didn't think at all. That's why I had to.
She glanced toward the living room. The packed suitcase seemed pathetic now, a child's runaway bag. She had no leverage left. The room had become a cage. William didn't move. He just waited. She pushed back the chair and stood. One hand pressed the table. The other clutched the edge of the divorce papers. She crossed to the living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood. The packed suitcase stood behind the sofa, just as she'd left it. William's voice cut through the silence. Not yet. She turned. He was on his feet, the petition in his hand.
You'll sign it before you go. I won't chase you, but I won't have loose ends.
He placed the petition on the table, smoothing it flat. A pen clicked down beside the blank signature line.
She looked at the empty line. After all the planning, this small act was the last cage he'd close around her.
Her fingers curled around the pen. The ink bled a little as she wrote, the scratch softer than any farewell. She signed Patricia Caldwell, the name she'd chosen for freedom, now her last debt to a man she'd underestimated.
There. Now you have everything. I hope it was worth the dinner.
She dropped the pen, grabbed the suitcase, and walked to the front door. The night swallowed her silhouette. At the front door, she paused, one hand on the handle, the suitcase standing beside her like a silent witness.
The house stays, Patricia, and Buddy stays.
Her fingers tightened on the handle. She didn't turn, but her shoulders dropped an inch. She pushed the door open. The night spilled in, cold and indifferent. She lifted the suitcase over the threshold, its wheels catching on the strip. It was the last obstacle she'd ever face in this house. She stepped out onto the porch. The boards creaked under her weight, a sound he'd heard 1,000 times. William didn't move. Beside him, Buddy whined softly, but stayed, his tail low. She turned for an instant, just a quarter profile, silver hair catching the porch light, then faced the darkness forward. She walked down the steps, the suitcase bumping behind her. The car waited at the curb. The front door stood open, spilling yellow light onto the empty porch. No one moved to close it. She stood on the porch, the night air cooling her skin. The open door behind her spilled yellow light onto the boards. Through the doorway, William remained at the table. Buddy lay at his feet, unmoving. He didn't rise, didn't call her name. The only sound was the faint tick of the grandfather clock. She waited one breath, then another. His silence was the final answer. She turned her back to the light and faced the darkness. The porch steps creaked as she descended. At the living room window, William watched her cross the lawn. Buddy pressed against his leg. She reached the car, its silver door reflecting the streetlight. The suitcase bumped to a stop. The car door opened, the interior light blinking once before she slid inside. The engine turned over. The front door swung shut with a soft click, the latch catching on its own. Inside, the house exhaled. William remained by the window, his hand resting on Buddy's head. The night pressed in, silent. William walked back into the dining room. The candles had burned to nubs, their light long dead. Buddy followed, tail low. The dog settled beside the chair, pressing his muzzle against the worn wood. He reached for the petition, smoothing the page where Patricia had scratched her final name. On the floor, the bank statements lay scattered, red circles like wounds. He let them be. Buddy rested his chin on William's knee, and the old man's hand found the familiar fur.
Just us now, Buddy.
He surveyed the aftermath, the half-eaten cake, the empty champagne flutes, the signed divorce, a battlefield. He inhaled deeply, the first full breath since the ticket. His lungs expanded without the weight. The faintest smile tugged at his mouth. Not joy, just the quiet recognition that he'd survived. Outside the house, the night was silent. Inside, a lamp glowed, and a man sat with his dog, still. Hours later, William sat in the old armchair by the window. The room was dark except for the single floor lamp casting a soft cone of light. Buddy lay curled on the rug, his breathing deep and even. The old dog slept the sleep of those who know they are safe. Through the window, the sky was just turning indigo at the edges. The stars were thinning. He didn't count the hours. The clock had stopped mattering. He was just watching the sky change.
He'd expected grief, but what settled in was quieter. The house felt bigger.
The first line of orange broke across the horizon, painting the garden fence, the old oak, the mailbox. A single tear slid down his cheek, but he didn't wipe it. It didn't feel like sorrow. He reached down and scratched behind Buddy's ears. The dog stirred, tail thumping once against the floor. The sun rose fully, flooding the room. The armchair, the sleeping dog, the man in the light blue Oxford. William still wore his wedding ring. He didn't know if he'd take it off, but he knew, for the first time in months, that the day belonged to him.